Okay, yo. I just finished the Archon Quest. Well, actually, yesterday night when it came out, but I couldn't make the video until now because of work and whatnot. But anyways, this was a really good Archon Quest. I like this one a lot. I thought like the plot was pretty well done. I thought the character interactions were pretty cool, and then it was a good tidbit into the lore that could affect the greater world. So the plot and conflict that we resolved here, well, not 100% resolved, but the finishing of the Archon Quest and throughout the Archon Quest, it was like revealing different lore bits that has some pretty big effects. So yeah, basically we start off coming back to Mondstadt, and it's the Windblume Festival, and the Windblume Festival is all about romance and giving things to people, doing nice things for other people, like celebrating each other basically. So how do we start the quest? Well, Catherine's like, hey, people are kind of feeling gloomy and stuff. And we're like, oh dear, why are people falling out of love with Diluc? Why are people potentially like cheating on each other? Well, I thought like one of the characters, Beatrice, was cheating on her friend. But anyways, it's like, oh, love is definitely not in the air. So yeah, let's try to see what's happening. And then, how do we get introduced to the whole trouble? Well, Kaeya. Of course it's Kaeya, the Conrian. Of course the Conrian introduces us to trouble. I'm kidding, but like, okay, Kaeya's like, hey, come with me, man. Good to see you, but also we got a situation on hand. And it's revealed to us through Jean. She's like, hey, I need all the captains here, except Albedo. Where's Albedo? Oh, because Albedo's on trial for what? For murder. And it's like, I said this in the trailer, right? During the trailer for this quest, it's like, do I really think that Albedo killed someone? That he's actually guilty of the charges? Like, oh, okay. But yeah, so we have quite a few of the playable characters in the trial as well. And then pretty much the charges are that several people have reported that they've seen Albedo supposedly dumping bodies and burying bodies, getting rid of the bodies at various points during various nights. So they think that he's murdering them and then taking them out. I think that the overall vibe of the trial is fine. I'm no lawyer or anything, right? I don't know law very well, but I think from my point of view, I think trials should definitely be unbiased, right? When there's evidence being presented, it shouldn't really be personal. It should just be, hey, here's the evidence which suggests XYZ. So that's how I kind of went into this whole mindset. And so when I was looking at the evidence, I was like, oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense. I think for the most part I was following along, but I thought it was really well detailed how there was actually bias being shown throughout the trial, mainly with Hertha. And I thought, wait, why does she sound so aggro towards Albedo? Why does she feel like she's getting kind of personal with Albedo? She's being really aggressive towards Albedo. No, it's an off-header. Dude, what?
これはモンドに住む多くの人々の安全に関わる問題。犯罪者を野放しにすれば、モンドの全住民に対する責任を
Why is Hertha pressuring Sucrose? What? I'm confused. Yo, Hertha's not being fair, man. She's biased. There's some like personal issue going on or something. So that was like a hint that, wait, something feels off here because things shouldn't be biased. And so I feel rewarded as a player, as a reader, as the audience member that kind of plays into the whole reveal during the end of the trial, right? So I thought that was really well done. I think that it's interesting seeing the different character dynamics to Albedo's trial, where someone really close to him, like Sucrose, is really in tears, just overall shocked that Albedo is on trial and that he's about to get convicted of murder. Whereas someone like Diluc, even though Diluc has gotten help from Albedo in the past, he's not exactly like too close to Albedo. So Diluc isn't one that would sway away from providing evidence, right? Diluc was the second person that provided evidence seeing Albedo at night at 3:40 a.m. in the night, which Diluc justifies that he was out there because he lives near Dawn Winery. Because he lives at Dawn Winery, so it's natural that he takes walks outside at random points in the night. Yeah, 3:40 a.m. Sure, sure, Diluc. Okay, I'll give you that. But anyways, it's like, okay, yeah, Diluc isn't one that just automatically defaults to being against the evidence for making Albedo guilty, which I thought was a good touch, right? You had a good mixture of, hey, I can't believe this and I'm Albedo's friend, but also like, hey, evidence is evidence. This doesn't feel great to do, but hey, evidence is evidence. Now, Jean does eventually declare that Albedo is guilty, and I think, for me, I wasn't exactly convinced by the whole evidence because it was still a lot of recognition by other people. There wasn't exactly like physical or like concrete evidence, no pun intended. But I think for the sake of the story, I was like, okay, I'll just go along with it, right? Because it definitely feels like, okay, yeah, sure. Like, Albedo, definitely something suspicious is going on. I think that in the back of my mind, because I played through the Shadow to Mist Snowstorms event, that I know that there's a susbedo out there, there's a clone out there, there's a Whopperflower being of Durin that can transform into other people. So in the back of my mind, I know that, okay, it might be related to that. There are two things that could happen. Either the Albedo that people saw out at night is either the clone, or it was actually Albedo, but no one actually saw Albedo killing anyone. That's the main thing, right? You saw him burying a body or whatever, but you didn't actually see him killing someone. So that was a big indication to me that there was still not enough evidence. But anyways, we wanted to move on, so I was like, okay, cool, they can submit a retrial in 2 days if they want, which Albedo does end up doing. But during those 2 days, we meet up with Venti, and also Venti is pretty close with Dahlia. So Dahlia is the deacon of the church, and then Dahlia knows who Venti is, Barbados. I was like, okay, I've never heard of you before, Dahlia. Well, I haven't really seen you much before, Dahlia, but okay, cool, I can accept that. And pretty much we go into Albedo's office and we find that, hey, there is some notes here that indicate that Albedo is aware of those events, those body burial events throughout Mondstadt, the 3 ones, one in Dragonspine and such, that we go to investigate, and we find that, hey, something's wrong here. There's like supposed to be a body here, but there isn't. And we pretty much take that back as evidence to present, and there's a letter that has Albedo's writing on it that suggests that he knows of some experiments that are going on, and we're like, okay, cool. I guess that's enough hard evidence to conclude that you are very guilty. Which again, it was cool how Hertha was being very, very aggressive again. Really, like, pretty much just talking down on Albedo, being that, hey, you have to be guilty. You have to be. So again, I think as the audience member, I felt very validated and rewarded for paying attention to this, for noticing this kind of detail. Because the game didn't explicitly tell you that. When Hertha was showing bias, you didn't really have other audience members calling it out, which I guess in hindsight maybe they should have, but it was like, hey, as an audience member, you pay attention? Cool. You get rewarded. And so at the climax of the trial, when people are pretty much ready to declare that Albedo is actually guilty and probably execute him, maybe? I don't know exactly what would happen in Mondstadt trials, but anyways, it's no Fontaine where there's a Mechani Delany Annalie. What's the... Yeah, it's not like Fontaine where there's a Oratri Mechani di Annalie Cardinel? I think I said it right? Yeah, there's not that machine or one of Fossilor's machines which will guillotine you. In fact, the whole climax is stopped when we have another Hertha that comes in. So at this point I was like, okay, it's very clear then that means that the Hertha that's been at the trial is the whole clone, the susbedo being. And I think it was a very good callback to how they revealed it, because the real Hertha, she's like, hey, there's a scar that I've had from my fights over the years that the other knights would know about. Can you show it? And it's a cool detail because the fake Hertha can't really show it, because if we remember when we had susbedo in the Shadow to Mist Snowstorms event, the clone didn't have Albedo's star mark when it was cloned as Albedo. So that was like an appearance telling point. They can't clone everything about the individual that they want to clone. So it's a cool little detail that they use that as the way to decide that, hey, that was the impostor. And this is where we last see the impostor, because the impostor just runs away at this point, which was kind of weird to me. I thought they could have showed more animation, like maybe another cutscene of the impostor getting away because throughout the whole rest of the ending of the quest, I was like, are we ever gonna address the fake Hertha and catch it maybe or something? So I would have liked that to be just more detailed, but basically it was like, oh, it just ran away. Like, it just got away. Although, like, yeah, it was controlling other beings that were imposters as well, but I guess, yeah, that just gave it enough time to get away. So, okay, fine. The whole crux of this trial that was being planned by the Knights of Favonius is that Dragonspine has been a looming threat because of Durin, because Durin's power has been spreading to the various monsters and such in the area, and so it's able to control them and then pretty much launch a big attack on Mondstadt. So this leads to the whole defense against Mondstadt, defend the city, where we have different monsters attacking the city and we have all the various characters trying to defend the city and protect the people. And in concept, again, from the trailer that we saw for this version, I was like, wait, this is really cool because this is a game mode that I have always wanted to see, where we run around Mondstadt or fly around Mondstadt and defeat the monsters and defend various points in the city. And the whole setup here for the gameplay is probably my main criticism with this quest, because it didn't play out very well, even though it had the good setup for it. So two main things is that they did set up a bunch of wind currents around the map, so this pretty much allowed the player to traverse around the map quickly without teleporting or whatever, let them fly around the map, getting to different points of the city that needed to be defended. But we didn't really do much, like, you didn't really have to do that because the objectives were so close to each other that it was pretty much slower to go by the cooler way of flying around through the wind currents. So that was my first criticism. And then my second criticism is that there are barely any monsters attacking the city. And the only time that there were a lot of monsters were during cutscenes. But otherwise, why did the game make us play as Amber and Mika against two hilichurls? Like, why? Why? Why not make us fight like 10 hilichurls to actually show that it's a threat? There are actually a lot of monsters. Like, show us 10, right? Oh, is it because you can't render many things on the screen?
那比如说，大世界不能放角色，为什么？前几年用户的设备性能不够，那现在够不够呢？够的话就放呗。所以说这个就是有意履文。
When we played as Eula or Razor and Lisa, like the other characters with Diluc and Kaeya, again, it was just very few number of monsters actually attacking the city when I just wanted more. Like, I wanted this to be an actual threat because it was being presented as an actual threat. Like, the whole city of Mondstadt was pretty much on lockdown for the most part. So, I think narratively it was fine, but from a gameplay perspective, it definitely could have been improved. Yeah, so pretty much once we stabilize the entire city, then there's the whole looming threat of Durin actually being revived, potentially, and then being such a big threat that it'll probably be way worse than last time Durin was active. So what Albedo needs to do is that Albedo's plan is to kill Durin and then turn Mini Durin from the Simon Lanka event into a human using alchemy. Which, just the concept by itself, I think is fascinating, and I'm glad that at the very least they incorporated this into the overall narrative, in the fact that this has consequences. They could have showed more, but I'm glad they addressed that this is a big deal. Because for one, in order to create this human through this transmutation of dead Durin's heart and Mini Durin, is that Albedo needed Venti to get a meeting with the Hexenzirkel to try to get the materials needed for this, which includes trying to get some flesh from an immortal monster from the Mare Javari, and some kind of embryo that Rhinedottir had used in the past for some kind of hideous experiment, I'm sure. Right, so getting this material is pretty hard to do, so that's why this whole trial, like, hey, if you really want this favor, you have to pass this trial. So we have a new weekly boss. I'm a chess player myself, so I always like seeing how chess is incorporated into different stories. And it wasn't like the most incorporated from a gameplay wise, but I saw some knight moving kind of like a knight in chess, so I was like, okay, that's enough for me. But yeah, we do beat them, and so we do get the magical body parts and materials that we need. 2 days after this crisis is averted, we continue the Windblume Festival. Jean awards Venti as the annual MVP of the Windblume Festival due to how much Venti helped during the crisis. Oh, actually, I forgot to talk about this, but about Mini Durin himself. So, like, he himself, I think, has some good thematic message because he's talking about how he doesn't know if this is the right path or not to become human, but he knows that life itself, he wants to live through life. And so he himself is deciding to go through to try to become human. Not because it's the right thing to do or the wrong thing to do, but that it's something that he himself decides to do, which I think is really cool. So Albedo does his magical alchemy. He does various seals, and then he combines the heart of the Durin with the Mini Durin. And so we have, voila, we have a new homunculus that's being made, that has been created into the world. Albedo is the gardener, and he has cultivated life. We see a quick snippet of Mini Durin's human form, which pretty much indicates to us that he'll be a playable character. Maybe he'll be a playable character in version 5.8, the one after Skirk, because we're gonna meet Varka in Not Cry. So probably if we get a new character in 5.8, it'll be Mini Durin's human form. So cool. Cool, I'm excited to see how he navigates through life, like how he feels being a homunculus, what that means for his interactions with other people, and his brother is Albedo now because they're both the only homunculus. So that pretty much wraps up the quest, and we have some lore bits that I want to discuss, which I think are very fascinating on their own. There are some little bits thrown through the Archon Quest about fate again. So Venti told us that, hey, if someone has a fate dedicated to them, even the 7 can't do anything about that. So not even the 7 Archons are able to mess with someone's fate. Which is interesting coming from Venti because as we saw with Focalors basically caught her own fate. She messed with the heavenly principles, right? But basically what this hints to us again is that fate by itself, it seems like that this is something that Celestia as a whole wants to control. They have various roles assigned to people, and they don't want people breaking out of this mold. They want people to play their parts, which is not really freedom, right? So it goes against the idea of freedom. We just had a new human being created through alchemy. And in all the stories that I have read or watched about alchemy, like Frankenstein or Full Metal Alchemist, is that alchemy, one of the main sins of alchemy is trying to create human life, to replicate life itself. And that's always taboo. And the stories there have always told us about how there will be consequences. So I wonder how the consequences of this will apply to Genshin's story. I think that it seems like the characters believe that, this homunculus creation, it's not really right or wrong, but it is something that is cultivating life, and it's Albedo's personal goal, so he's happy that he was able to do this. But like from a heavenly principles point of view, I think that they should notice that, hey, someone else has tried to create life. This seems like something that Kaeya would do, trying to defy fate itself. We should do something about that, right? So that's why I feel like it would have been nice to end the quest here with some kind of like cutscene or something from someone above, someone in Celestia being like, wait, did someone just create life? We don't allow this. We gotta do something about that, right? So that's why like I'm happy that this plays an overall part into the lore, the world, because I think this will have consequences, because the game is really telling us like, hey, you're defying fate. But I think it's time for the story to like actually show us bits of Celestia, bits of the heavenly principles, what the Tsaritsa is fighting against, kind of thing. I mean, anyways, I'm glad that it was like a big part of the narrative, right? You don't leave this quest thinking, oh, it's all hand and dandy. It's all nice and dandy that a new human life was created through alchemy, right? So that's the sense that I got. The other big revelation that Albedo tells us is that his master Rhinedottir, which is funny that they keep talking about Rhinedottir in such a positive mood, even though we know that Rhinedottir is one of the 5 sinners of Kaeya, and Dainsleif probably hates Rhinedottir with all his guts. But it's just funny, we just keep talking about gold and Rhinedottir in a nice way, so that's interesting. But Rhinedottir has apparently devoured one of the 5 one of the 4 shades of the primordial one, the shade of the ruler of life. So yeah, we met the whole ruler of death in that land with Mavuika and Capitano and such. And we saw what happened there. Like, there were some big, like, omnipotent powers that happened there. And we're learning that Rhinedottir has consumed one of those rulers, the ruler of life itself, which is, you know, life being thematic to what we just saw with a new human being created, a new homunculus. So I'm very interested to see, like, what that means and how that even happened, because as we know, Conrio was targeted by Celestia. And I'm pretty sure that the shades of the primordial one are related to Celestia. So it's like Rhinedottir, one of the sinners from Conria, was able to devour a ruler. Yo. Okay. Okay. Cool. Just like, please show us how that affects the world. Just like show us, please. Like, show us and not cry. Or just soon. Please, I beg of you. But yeah, my overall thoughts on this is that it was just really fun to go through. I think the pacing was pretty good with the whole Archon Quest. Things moved at a pretty good rate. There were no stalling or no, like, I would say boring dialogue per se. I liked that this quest can stand on its own, even if we forgotten the events of Shadows Amid Snowstorms from 3 years ago and the Simonlanka event from a year ago. It's nice that this quest can stand on its own because it's pretty scoped to Mondstadt. It told a good story, a pretty simple but effective story, and it was just like easy to follow through with it, follow along with it per se. So I like this Archon Quest. It plays a big part into the overall world. Like, the fact that this Archon Quest happened matters for the actual world, mainly because of the whole creating human life. So that should play a role that should have consequences into the overall narrative at some point. Hopefully soon. Hopefully soon. I had a really good time. I was pretty excited to just talk about this. And yeah, Mondstadt stocks are going up. Mondstadt stocks are growing up. I'm a buy. I've always been an investor. I've always believed in Mondstadt. I've had stocks of Mondstadt since day one. I'm a Mondstadt enjoyer. But yeah, anyways, that's pretty much it for the video. So yeah, thank you for watching. And I hope you are blessed with greatness and miracles and a good life.